I will call the meeting to order.
First motion on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
Seconder for that? Emily Kurt. Anybody wish to speak to that? There's no additions.
Just hang on.
First motion on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
Seconder for that? Emily Kurt. Anybody wish to speak to that? There's no additions.
First motion on the agenda.
Okay, is somebody connected? Okay, it's maybe me. Hang on.
Just on the agenda.
First motion on the agenda.
Okay, now you can go ahead.
I'll call for the question. All in favor?
Okay, then, so the first item this evening then is under the order of bylaws. Bylaw 1705-02-2022, use of municipal resources in an election. This is for second reading.
We will need a mover and seconder.
Second.
Okay, anybody wish to speak to that?
No.
I will call for the question. All in favor?
Again, bylaw 1705-02-2022, use of municipal resources in an election, third and final reading.
Mover and seconder, Kurt and Emil. In that order. Again, I will ask, anybody wish to speak to that? I will call for the question. All in favor?
Under unfinished business this evening, item 4.1 would be your council decision for conditional use application 0 CU-03-22-C.
We'll need a mover.
I'll make the.
Go ahead, sir.
Basically close the last one. Whereas Mike Sitko, with the consent of the owners 7577-509 Manitoba Limited, has applied for a conditional use order to permit the establishment of a non-farm dwelling parcel on northwest quarter 03-1018 WPM within the Ag 80 Agricultural General Zone. And whereas council has held a public hearing to hear representation in favor or in opposition to the application, and now therefore in consideration of any representation made at the hearing and at the application itself, the council hereby approves the application as submitted, if approved or and authorized that conditional use order number CU-03-22C be issued subject to the following condition: the applicant to provide confirmation of easement arrangements for ingress and egress to proposed lot number 2 satisfactory to the RM of Cornwallis. I second the motion.
Does anybody wish to speak to that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairperson, just in case the audience, we basically closed the hearing last Tuesday night. It was recommended by our legal counsel that we're unsure. That parcel of land was a little bit different than the normal egress and basically ingress. So we decided to table it to make sure that we put an easement agreement or easement arrangements into this parcel for future lot owners. So there's no basically disagreement who owns the right, et cetera. So it's up to him and his lawyer and legal team to put this easement in place.
Anybody else wish to speak to that? I will call for the question. All in favor?
Next item on the agenda then is the office photocopier replacement.
I would say local business. Yeah, local.
This is North Fork Readings. Which one was that, Emma? The gold business, the one on the end. Is everybody on the printout for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different
Well,
machines?
there's 6 ones.
6 different machines. The one we have now is Carcera, the gold
It is,
business.
yeah. really cool, yeah. Now, I did do, I'm sorry, I guess you'll need a second.
Well, actually, no, I mean, I no normally do. Oh, you moved it?
Mhm.
Okay, I'll second it to get it on the table.
Okay.
Get discussion. That's a question.
So I did do a breakdown between the gold business machine as well as the Office Innovation Sharp MX4071 without the finisher. We currently do have a finisher on our machine, but we don't use it. So we quite often forget it has a stapler in there. So to me, for the extra $1,000 or $500, it's not, it's a nice to have, but it definitely isn't something that we use a lot.
It's not 500, it's 2.
Well, for
30.
gold business, it's $950 for the finisher.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
and-
That's extra.
Yeah.
Over top of the 250.
That's right.
Oh,
And
okay.
the Office Innovations was from 6,019 to 6,850 with a finisher. So I didn't think that they were necessary. And so Office Innovations are guaranteeing their rates for 2 years, and then every year, those years after is 7% increase, and gold business is a fixed for 2 and a 5% increase thereafter. So I did a breakdown between the gold and the Office Innovation and for the service contract. So based on our average for the last 2 years. And so the office or the Sharp product, which is Office Innovations, for 5-year total should be in around, if our average stays the same, $6,924 for 5 years. And
Gold.
gold was $7,678. So the difference between those two was $753. With gold being 753 higher than the Office Innovation.
This Carcera, the gold one, is it very similar to the one we have?
Yeah, very
You wouldn't
sweet.
need any extra training
Oh,
per
gosh.
se or anything like that?
No. They're
Because
both-
some of them offer that, right?
Yeah, some of them offer that. The Office Innovations and the Carcera, I mean, yeah, one's a Sharp and one, they're both photocopiers. They both have, a few little nuances. Either one of them would serve the purpose that we have in the office.
Mr. Chair, what that color spot is, the gold
Yeah.
is 44 cents.
Yeah.
What is that?
So gold has a different piece. So if we don't use a full color, so say we have a page that only has maybe the title is in color,
Mhm.
that would be considered a spot
Okay.
color. And they will only charge us 0.045 cents for that piece of paper as opposed to the 6
Other one
cents.
charges you full price
Yeah, which is,
for the full page.
yeah,
Right?
5.25
Yeah.
cents a page,
Yeah.
yeah.
So basically, the machine is $6,250.
Yeah.
And 5 years, right?
And then the service contract.
So what's the service contract? then?
So the service contract then is your cost per copy. So the service contract, they get a reading from us every month and then they send us a bill based on how many copies we've had. And the service contract then is all repairs, all toners. If we have a problem with anything, they come out and fix it.
For the 6 cents.
Yeah, and both companies are local. I have nothing negative at all to say about Gold. And Office Innovations, they were very easy to work with as well. And I believe it was their contract that gave us a 4-hour service.
So what do we average per month cost? Do we have that?
Yeah, so we averaged, Based on the last 2 years, black and whites, we
Mhm.
averaged 15,866
A month
a year.
or a year?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the color, 21,587. So
Mhm.
that's what I did the breakdown on based on their fees. So that came out to $6,924 for the full 5 years for Office Innovations and 7,678 for.
Now, is that printer shared with Keystone, just Keystone?
It is at this particular point, that both machines have the capability of us actually putting in users, so then we can charge back. But I do believe in their budget this year, they're gonna get their own machine, so.
Okay,
So I suspect our numbers will drop because of that as well.
so we don't have an idea what they've used it or.
No, we
on
don't,
average.
no. It wasn't, it
It
wasn't.
wasn't programmed for that block of business.
We had, yeah,
right?
because we didn't anticipate how much they might use, but with public hearings and that type of thing, it's all color print. But I do know it's in their budget to get their own machine, so. So I know that our numbers will definitely drop.
5 years, it's $1,250.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1272.94 is based on those
Yeah.
numbers that we've had for Office Innovations and 1445
Yeah.
a year for Kyocera.
And the lease, like straight lease, how much?
I didn't look at a lease, I just did the buyout, because that's what we had done in the past.
And how old is that one? The one we got?
This machine, we started it on a lease in 2009.
Hmm.
Yeah, and in 2011 is when we got hit by hydro here.
Okay,
And so they had to replace the machine. And so when that lease finished, council bought the machine. So this is the same machine since 2011. And now it's of course obsolete. And we pay a significant amount for our copies now because of that fact.
yeah, gold, according to this chart, definitely looks the better. Especially with that many copies.
That's where it pays off in the end, is the amount of copies, right? Especially for the first 2 years, because they're guaranteeing that price, right?
Yeah,
Oh. okay.
yeah. So the Office Innovation is slightly cheaper for their copy. For the black and
Yes.
white is
Okay, it
0.088.
is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the color is 0.0525, but they do not offer the spot. But then we don't have that now, so I can't even say what those kind of
What
numbers.
the savings would be.
Yeah, because we don't have anything to give us any of those kind of numbers.
I'll bet you'd be quite substantial. It might surprise a person, because if you're only doing a heading in color, you're not being charged for the whole page.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not sure.
I'll bet you
Yeah.
over time, it would make quite a difference.
Mhm.
Without having a function now, it's kind of
So
hard to put a basic
basically-
number on it.
The motion was from Emily for the gold business, right?
Yes,
And that's who we're dealing with.
that's
now.
who we deal with now.
And the service has been an issue.
Never an issue.
What's everybody think?
But at the record, everything else. Price wise, no big difference. So
Basically, I mean, I agree, gold business looking at this, and they basically have serviced our machines since 09.
Yeah.
But I think we need to push Keystone Planning to either a different like find out what they use in the back charger, not make any money, just
Yeah.
claw back whatever is owing.
Yeah, we now have it set up so that we have our user
Yeah.
capabilities, and these machines do as well.
Yeah.
We made sure that they have that, so
Is that a code system?
it's a code system,
Okay.
yeah.
That's a good idea. I don't have a problem with the gold one, the Kyocera, just because that's what we've been using, and the girls, well, not just the girls, everybody's familiar with it, I suppose, and I think that feature at the bottom, that point 045 on the not doing a full color page or being charged for a full color page for heading I think will make a bit of a difference as well. Because it doesn't have to be a heading, does it? If you want a line item, something in yellow or a different color, then it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, just a spot.
Yeah, it's just like,
I would assume that it probably has some kind of a function where it says if the page has, you know, this percentage of color, then it's considered spot, and if not, then it's considered
Right.
color. Yeah.
right,
Should be.
what are you thinking, Sam?
No, I mean, yeah, Gold Solutions obviously is the one,
Okay.
but,
Bobby?
so basic, the price will be 62.50
Yeah.
on the quotation.
Yeah.
Because you didn't read it out. Well, so what's the next line?
Okay, so it's, so now therefore be it resolved, we do hereby award the quotation to Gold Business Solutions for the Kirasira TA 3554 CI for the stated price of $6,250 and associated service contract pricing
And the contract pricing is the
is the cents. per-
0.95.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, no,
Makes sense.
And I propose that we pay for the machine out of the general reserve.
We've got a mover and a seconder. Anybody else wish to speak to that? Okay, I will call for the question. All in favor?
Alrighty.
I want to sneeze, but I can't.
Yeah, so the next item then on the agenda is your reception of public hearings. So if you would like to just adjourn for the time being to allow the residents to attend, and then you can call us back into order if you. want.
Sure, let's do that.
Yeah.
So we'll need a mover and a seconder to adjourn then, or you
Or
just
you could even just probably, you know.
take a break?
Take a break.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay,
What do you got in your mind, Seth?
so is this the 7 o'clock meeting?
yeah, so the public hearing will start at 7 PM. So your residents will come in
Yeah,
and log, well, we
Well, we gotta-
actually have somebody here. so.
okay, I thought we had one other one.
I
Okay,
thought you
my
guys
mistake.
were gonna take a
Yeah.
lot longer to
I'll
have
make a
your
motion to go in public
discussions.
hearing, yeah.
Okay,
I thought we had another one at the bottom, but it's all,
so
all
we
the
can
same thing.
just take a pause then
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
7 PM?
Yeah,
Okay,
we're not gonna make a motion to go into public hearing.
No.
We're just gonna
Take a
take a pause till we go
Yeah.
into public
I'll
hearing.
make the motion to pause
yeah,
till 7 PM.
okay. So whoever was on there, they're gonna come back.
And then it was text you.
$7:00. Do you want to wait a couple of minutes or do you want to keep going?
Do you want to have a look outside and see if there's any?
Sure, let's do that. Want to give everybody an opportunity to. Yeah.
Fingers gonna melt. Last year, I didn't.
It's pulling in there. I don't see anyone else.
Okay. Okay.
If you want to call us back into order, then
I will call us back into order for the public hearing. We'll need a mover and a seconder. Anybody wish to speak to that? I will call for the question. All in favor?
yes, all right.
That's okay.
Okay, so the purpose of this public hearing this evening is regarding local improvement plan number 3 for the Chater sewage collection system. And so I have a small presentation that I will endeavor to share. Now, for those of you that are, oh goodness, now you can't even see it. Hang on. For those of you that are online, can you let us know that you can see the share?
I can see it.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, so most of you were here, I think, the last presentation, so I won't go into a ton of detail, but just a little update. So again, it's regarding local improvement plan number 3 for the Chater sewer collection plan. And borrowing for capital projects, the municipality is governed by the Municipal Act with regard to borrowing capabilities. Borrowing must be authorized by bylaw, and that section of the act also provides what is the content that goes into the bylaw. Passing of a borrowing bylaw, council must give public notice before giving first reading. So that's where we're at this evening. And every proposed borrowing to be approved by board must be received and approved by the municipal board before third reading. So in 2022, Cornwallis partnered with Meadowbrook Trailer Park to allow for an expansion to their capacity to allow for the Chater community to be connected to that lagoon system. And in conjunction with Water Services Board, the municipality commissioned Burns Mandel to prepare a detailed design plan for that sewer collection system. So the proposal then is for a local improvement, which involves the installation of a low pressure sewage collection system and lift station for the community of Chater. In the identification of the potential taxpayers, there are 69 potential users of the system, and whether those be ones that already have a home on the lot or are current subdivided approved lots within the community that have not got a home built yet. They are still responsible for paying for the local improvement. But there are 3 lots that we did exclude, and that is the playground, the Chater Hall, and the green space on Kingdom Avenue. So the Chater Hall currently doesn't have water either, so. So this map was included within your documents. So it shows in pink all of the potential lots, and the ones in green are the 3 lots that would not be included within the local improvement.
I'm sorry for interrupting, Donna, but I'm not getting any changes on my screen. And now I just have the top left corner of the number 1 there, Rural Municipality of Cornwallis.
Oh, Perry.
Yeah, I'm not getting anything either, Donna. It's Arlene.
Okay. Technology, very good. Well, it's working.
Okay, that looks good. I can see the method and rate calculating local improvement
Perfect.
tax.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not
All right.
gonna change the screen.
yeah, that's better.
Okay, okay. Alrighty. So the method then in calculating the local improvement tax, based on the maximum borrowing amount, which we're proposing of $772,890 at the right now maximum borrowing rate of 6.225%. We're proposing that this be done on a per parcel basis to ensure that each parcel of land is calculated equally. And the per parcel also allows for prepayment of that if you so wish to. Right now, the estimated cost of the local improvement is $2,437,830. And the municipality has been approved for a 50-50 grant from Water Services Board, leaving the municipal portion at $1,218,950. So then again, just to go over the particulars of that borrowing. So the amount is $772,890. The term that we're proposing currently is 20 years for a maximum rate of 6.225. And at the time that I did the document, the 20-year provincial rate was 4.225. So gives us a little bit of a cushion in there because we can't lock the rate in until we're ready to actually get the borrowing. The annual payment based on the 6.225 is $68,620.08. If you divide that amount by your 69 parcels, it comes out to $994.49 per year. Or if you so wish to do the one-time prepayment, it's $11,201.30.
I have one question.
Yes,
When you arrived at 772,800 Main,
yes,
okay, in the publication, you are removing 390, using 390 from the gas tax revenue
yes,
and 56,000 from the Bridge Culvert Reserve, right?
that's correct.
Okay.
yes.
You show it up on the screen.
Yeah, sorry, no. Yeah, so local improvement would be $390,000 coming from the federal gas tax reserve and $56,025 from the bridge and culvert, yes.
Thank you.
Get on this one. So then, this is just a copy of our debenture particulars showing each year and being fully paid off in the year 20. And where are we now? We are at the public hearing portion of the public notice. So council can entertain any comments, either in for or in objection to the local improvement.
That include presentations?
Yes. Yes. So we received one written a notice that we'd like to give a presentation, and that was from Sean. Did you want to start, Sean?
Sure, I was waiting to be invited by my council.
Feel free to bring a chair.
No, I'm good, good.
You want chair?
Nope, I'm good, thank you. Hi, guys, I just, before I begin, I just got a housekeeping point I want to bring up. I'm gonna be talking on, some federal government spending and, contracts. And just to show that I have the capacity or a little bit of education on how to do that, the best thing I could bring to show that is, this is the Commander of Land Staff Commendation, it's the second highest commendation you could get in Canadian Armed Forces. I received this for a job I did during off Peregrine, the PC fires back in 2003. I brought some copies of it, you guys can have a read here. So, yeah, I'll pass these out. Because I know I shouldn't expect you just to take my word for it. Here, John, have a good read.
Thank you.
Give you guys pass these out. Okay, so basically what you're gonna get out of this is I was a cook in the military and my job was to feed an army. I have spent millions of your dollars to feed the army. I was retired as a warrant officer. At this time I was a sergeant. Part of those duties is managing government contracts for commodities and services, such as juice dispensers, and pretty well everything we bought was over $20,000, so we had to do it on contract. I went through various levels of education on my career progression to get the privilege to do that for you. And after this little adventure, that earned me the right to go to Afghanistan as the battle group chief cook for Roto 2 off Apollo, where part of my duties was also as the with the contract management team as a contract manager and subject matter expert for food services for the contract to run the camp that was being led by SNC Lavalin. So I got a little bit of training on contracts, big contracts on that one. So just to put your mind at ease that I have a little bit of experience with that. So to begin, my main issue is basically with the lagoon, except for the total lack of respect that I think our council and engineering company has showed the public they represent. It seems funny how they know all the specs for the pump, even the brand name, but no price. We were told during the first meeting that we would get a total price right to hook up. That never happened. We were given a vague cost and lots of caveats and expenses for some ratepayers. But who? The engineering company had never approached me about issues or any advice on hookup. You people that have to change your tank, like they mentioned in the last meeting, do you know who you are? Do you know what expenses that's going to incur you? And I won't take a fellow citizen's word that I can leave my septic field in place, because I know that's not really true. They could have at least contacted the provincial authority and had that information for us. But we get vague comments and no concern for what erroneous costs are from our council or engineering company that is being employed by the public. The other point on the plumbing is that if you remember during the first meeting, I was concerned about the pressure from the lagoon's location uphill. You are aware that we have to buy a generator also with this to ensure that if the power goes out, we won't have a problem, eh? That's part of the deal Mr. Hofer had mentioned to me about that. What if someone has a tank breach and groundwater invades the system? How is a series of pumps going to help? Large risk for under 20 homes to complete the community's growth. Because like the contract from the gas tax that they give for the lagoon, not the one for this, 80 homes maximum, unless there is capacity. We also have to renegotiate the input and the cost in 2025 and every 5 years after. The improvement taxes for 20 years. This deal is only good to 2030, and then he can give us 2 years notice we can no longer use that lagoon. So I still fail to see how this $2 million project is in the best interest of DRM as a whole. Why aren't the acreages across the street not being included with this, or the why? It is a utility. They can force people to hook up to it. One other point on the presentation we were giving is a misleading usage of sewage collection as the purpose of this system. It is not sewage collection system. It is a wastewater collection system. This means you will still have to pump your tank out once a year or so. exactly the same as you do now if you have a septic field. You still have to maintain and run a pump. The only change will be a new quarterly bill that's based on your water usage. So just like the big city, when you water your lawn or wash your car and the water goes down your system, you pay for wastewater collection, but not sewage. Remember, this is included in the lot fees for the trailer park, and these citizens only paid one reduced rate for bulk water. All operating expenses will be paid by the citizens of Chater after we negotiate our use for the lagoon that was funded to be constructed, including our use and growth by the federal gas tax. I still fail to see how this benefits us, let alone the RM as a whole, as our council has sworn to consider with their oath of office. My main opposition to this is the lagoon itself. If I was given this as a project in university, and you guys, if you look at you, Chater Chatter will know I went to university after leaving the military. If I was given this as a project in school, but for a twist was asked to find the worst location to site a lagoon to solve these challenges, I would have picked the spot it's in. It is in the most densely populated area in the ward. The RM had to allow an easement for its site because it was in contradiction to their own bylaws, as being too close to the residents. It creates an extra complication requiring multiple lift stations to overcome the elevation. And I feel for my poor neighbors across the road from the lagoon in those nice acreages and the effects on their property values. We do live in a predominantly west wind. Mr. Wolford told me that in 2006, when the province caused this little issue with the change for lot size and septic fields, they provided almost the exact same plan as we now have, except a few differences. It was designed for a lagoon, but 2 miles east. This one is 1 3/4 or so. Following the drainage pattern and in open country, not a nuisance, room to grow, allowing for other trailer parks and communities. That's the site I would have picked as well. No potato land and close to Willow Creek. Another issue is the lack of clarity in this agreement. I have, as you have seen, worked with a lot of goods and services contracts. The contract for this gas tax contribution is for the construction of a lagoon considered, and I quote, capable of accommodating wastewater from users in and around the community of Chater and to accept wastewater from such users subject to the terms of this agreement. There is no specific amount in this agreement or specified rates of flow considerations from our residences. My experience with rental and leased kitchen equipment, such as beverage dispensers, in order to get a contract approved and go for tender, we had to provide estimated usages and all aspects of upkeep and maintenance requirements. So I had to predict 5 years ahead the amount of beverages a beverage dispenser would likely use per location. Not to mention in this contract of the accepted affluence amounts. The only mention, there is no mention of it. The only thing I can find that even kind of limits us is just clause 10. There says will be a maximum of 80 connections to the municipality sewage collection, and 12 that states that the municipality shall be responsible for installing a metering pit to measure volume of wastewater pumped to and disposed at the operator's lagoon. As far as this contract goes, it's, in my mind, very scary and raises a lot of concerns. The initial environmental application and license was very clear. As I pointed out in the first meeting, this lagoon was for the sole use of Meadowbrook Village in conjunction with the golf course for irrigation guidelines. The new license Donna sent me still only references the trailer park. No mention of Chater, only an increased storage capacity from 59,670 cubic meters to 74,673 cubic meters, a 15,003 difference. So from 260 cubic meters a day to 325 cubic meters a day, a difference of 65 cubic meters a day. Sure doesn't seem like a lot of capacity to me, but I'm not the kind of guy that does that kind of math. But I did use my water usage at home and applied it to all your homes and came up with a larger number than that. It is in a very confined location, and it's probably like the original license said, at design capacity. In order to assure the park was accommodated, each residence was evaluated. I have a 5-bedroom home with 2 occupants. So I sell, the population of this house could double. Will there be capacity? Or be like my poor neighbors who bought a residence where the builder and developer's main effort was to put the smallest septic tank legally allowed? Will there be capacity, or will we have to get pumped out once a month until discharge is allowed? If you were sold a house with low flow appliances, it was so that they could install the smallest tank allowed. Now I feel it's such the so-called excellent deal will put the whole community in this situation. Will you be able to have a home business like a daycare, or will it be restricted just in Chater because of limitations as nowhere else in the RM? This also brings up a concern with my limited knowledge and training in government contracts. It appears to me this contract is in breach because they were contracted to design and construct, it says. There is no mention of the capacity from Chater in that contract whatsoever. There was never any consideration for the residents in and around Chater and the design application, environmental application, first license and final license, as seen here. And I have it right there. And it doesn't include the combination of the residents in and around Chater. So this agreement basically is invalid. This is a question that needs to be answered. And the efforts of the municipality to block access to this lagoon construction is further evidence. But how can money be used? That gas tax money is only supposed to be used for a public works. But how can they use it for a private works, which was the lagoon? When asked at the public meeting, I was told, no, we didn't have to do it because it was a private works. And in my opinion, the dates are suspect as well. If memory serves, the lagoon was pretty well complete 2020, and they were told to construct the lagoon. There are questions to be answered. These are all questions that will be answered from a higher level of government too, because other levels of government's money is involved. There was a reason why the province wouldn't fund this lagoon, Mr. Hofer, and it's because it was a private works. This fact brings me to the point where I personally might show bias. As now you know, I have served Canadians for a long portion of my life. And I have an elevated view of service and what's expected from those who swear to serve. Honest with you, I bummed smokes from those guys we remember on November 11th from some of them. So forgive me, please, but this whole experience, for lack of a better term, disgusts me. I feel like we were summoned to the Politburo, cheered on by oligarchs, and told to give all to the collective. There is no such thing as free government money. It all comes out of our pockets. And if you're like me, an average Canadian, you get no write-offs. Also, legally mandated, at least 3 bids on a purchase over $20,000 is not our choice. It's your legal obligation representing us. Our elected officials have sworn an oath laid out in their role and duties of council handbook. I have the handbook here in my head. This is a 2018 one. I saved it from school for some reason. Decision making. Council is responsible for making fair and transparent decisions based on relevant information, discussion, and majority vote. Representation. Council is democratically elected as representatives of the community. Council members are responsible to listen to and engage with the public and consider the best interests of the whole municipality. Stewardship. Council is responsible for the supervision and care of the municipality's resources. And this means making sure that infrastructure, money, staff are used properly and effectively. This also means planning strategically for the challenges and opportunities of the future. And the other two that I would like to read from this. Ensure that the powers and duties of the functions of the municipality are appropriately carried out. Council is accountable to the public for its decisions and how the municipality operates. Carry out the powers and duties and functions to council by legislation. Council is responsible to ensure that the can't talk, my mouth's dry, sorry. The municipality acts within the law and meets any legislated requirements. A municipality can be taken to court by any person if it acts outside its legal authority. Besides these duties, just the lack of concern during these trying times is evident of an agenda. So I'm trying to wet my mouth. I find it amusing that the year the water plant upgrade public improvement tax ends this year, that we are given this one. Probably hard to substantiate a municipal board approval if one public improvement tax is already on the books. But on my street, there's only 3 households that remain after the last public improvement tax. Only the trailer park got a deal on that one, because we never got no reduced rates. Because they installed the infrastructure, it was allowed a single meter and volume discount. Sounds like a similar situation we're in. We weren't offered such a deal. I don't forget this, council trying to charge us twice for what was required to operate the new upgraded water plant. Yet they still have $117,000 in reserve for half of what they originally proposed. They originally proposed $4.13 a cubic meter, if the people that were here remember. I have no faith in the representation in this negotiation either. Just look at this deal. The federal gas tax was handed over to Meadowbrook for the lagoon. We have federal gas tax in this. We have the provincial in this. And the only thing we get from the RM is their culvert thing. They have $117,000 in reserve in the utility. And the way I figure it, the only people that are hooked to it are the citizens of Chater and the trailer park, the 1 meter. That's over $2,000 a meter that they're holding on to. They also have $5 million in total reserve and no investment of our portion of that. There's at least, they say 5,000 people, that's $1,000 each. That could have helped. We might have been able to use that as part of our hookup. I wonder if they know something we don't. So our council won't even invest in this, and I quote, an amazing deal. Then we come to the overall situation. There is no municipal plan. Keystone Planning District still isn't finished in 2 years. Then how does this fit in the RM's plan for growth? The cost of living is going through the roof. All levels of governments are looking for ways to reduce taxes and easing the burden of this and pandemic recovery. So our council shows its concern by offering a deal that's too good to be true, that they themselves won't provide any funding in a year when experts predict it will cost us $5,000 more to this point next year than from this point last year. I'm considering almost twice as much before I'm hooked up because I know I'm going to have to decommission my field. We would have been cheaper to get pumped out once a month almost, and no quarterly bill, because like the water upgrade and all the changes between what we got from the first meeting on this collection system, like we would know the price to hook up, and now indicates to me that our costs don't matter to council. Ever watch those construction documentaries on TV? Who's the first guy you meet? The project manager. Who's our project manager? It's mind-boggling. A $2 million project and no manager assigned to protect the public interest. I guess it doesn't matter what it costs the public. As I have read to you, do you think that these actions reflect the oath that they swore? So to close, I know you're waiting for this. There is one thing I have learned from my military service is don't be the guy who walks into the room, tears apart the plan and expect to walk out. A no vote isn't destroying our community, it's reclaiming it. We can use the next 2 years to hold our council's feet to the fire and firstly, see if this is a legitimate deal. The engineer can then provide us what was promised originally, a more substantially researched cost per dwelling hookup of what was required for us. And council can put our tax dollars to work and engage the local schools in ACC and Brandon University and see what would be required to provide in-kind services for like capstone projects or a graduate project to discover and provide cost evaluations for other solutions that are out there and may be available to us using modern technology, as I described on Chater Chatting. These schools are always looking for these kinds of projects to help with education, and from the presentations 21 days ago, it's as good a quality as we were presented. This is not the only solution to this challenge, and I would argue a cheaper option is yet to be explored. Since we moved here in 2012, there has been a single focus to complete this project at all costs. No other option was ever discussed with council and the public. Even though a member of the public pointed out options, this is just more of many examples of the lack of respect council shows those they serve. So we can say yes, and I'll assure you, this deal is too good to be true, or we can say no and force council to act in a responsible manner in the spirit of the oath they swore. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak, either in favor or in opposition to the proposal?
I'm in favor.
John?
I'd like to ask a question. At the last meeting, it was stated that some people may have to move their septic tanks, some people may have to replace them, and so on. Now, as far as I can tell, the engineers would know that. Have the people who have to make changes like that been notified?
No, not yet, Mr. Tardif, no.
Well, because Mr. Hofer, you told me that your neighbor installed a new holding tank a few years ago that cost him $9,000. So if we go on that premise, the $11,000, and if you replace your tank, will balloon to $20,000. And so don't you think that before people even accept this, shouldn't they know the total cost? Because some people are going to have one big surprise, thinking, oh, well, okay, I've got to come up with $11,000. And oh, you mean it's going to cost me 20 now? And maybe that's conservative too, I don't know. But shouldn't, if you're open and above board, wouldn't you contact people and say, look, in order to hook on, you're going to need to do this. We paid how much in engineering? And we know nothing. You don't inform us about anything. I don't know what's going to happen with my tank if I have to replace it. You have the information and you don't share it. And then you wonder why people are wondering, well, are they working on our behalf, or they're just steamrolling ahead and say, just vote yes, vote yes, vote yes, and we'll worry about the rest later. Well, 11,000 to 20,000, there's a big difference. So why don't you share the information? This shouldn't go any further until everybody knows what's going to be required. Otherwise, we're signing on the dotted line and then find out later and say, oh, I didn't realize. So you should get back and do your homework and contact the people and be open and transparent about the costs. Otherwise, people wonder why they say, well, you can't trust them. Well, of course not. Not when you behave that way.
Can I ask, I'm just going to clarify, Mr. Tardif, you're speaking in opposition to the proposal?
What do you think?
I just need to make sure that I ask.
I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. What I'm saying is you people have a lot of work to do before you come back to us and ask for approval. That's what I'm saying. Tonight is not the time to approve. we need more information because there are going to be people that have one heck of a surprise down the road. And they don't realize it. And the troubling thing to me is you have that information. You have the information and you don't share it with the people who are going to foot the bill.
Sir.
And you're supposed to be looking after our interests. And you're going to convince me that you're working on our behalf? All you want to do is send us a bill for the amount and shut up and be quiet, just vote yes and put it through. And I think you have to change your attitude on how you look upon the taxpayers, because they're the ones who keep funding your projects, because you sure don't, the municipality sure doesn't back it up. But you treat us like we don't matter. Just sign the check. That's what you owe us, and be quiet. So I would like the municipality and the engineers to notify the people and be upfront and transparent as to what the real costs are going to be. Because you have that information, why wouldn't you share it? That's my piece.
Is there anyone else in the audience here who would like to speak?
Maybe I can see something.
Peter?
I'm Peter Tynes, I'm the developer of the subdivision there. And I kind of really appreciate that council is finally coming around to being able to, I think in a very inexpensive way compared to what some communities have experienced to get wastewater. It looks like a really positive direction. I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't include the 38 acres we've got to the east, because we have plans there for a lot more lots, but I understand we're doing things kind of in a phased way. We're also looking at potentially subdividing out some additional lots there that would bring the cost down to everybody. We have lots that are 150 feet wide and some that are 200 feet wide. We're looking at making some 100-foot wide lots. So if that goes through before, if our subdivision application goes through before the final vote on this, it would be good for everybody, because I think that for every 7 or 8 lots that we get, we can probably reduce the cost to every ratepayer by about 10%. Right, so that would actually be a positive thing. I do agree with what you're saying. It'd be great to be transparent, and
Yes.
but at the same time, we've had the subdivision since 2009, and it's been a long time coming. So I sure am hoping that we can figure something out that everybody can live with. Part of me, says that if somebody really doesn't want to connect to it, I know that the municipality would kind of like to say, no, everybody's got to connect to it on the street, right? But we have potentially on the east side of Main Street, we have potentially 8 lots there that could just connect to, just be subdivided off of Main Street. Maybe because there's a limit to the wastewater capacity, if somebody didn't want to be on the system because you've got an existing wastewater field, maybe, Donna, maybe it would be something that we could say that, we don't mind that being part of some of our lots and paying for that, right? But maybe the municipality doesn't like that. I don't know. So
It's not that they may not like it, it's that once you're in the improvement area, you have to.
you have to do every lot, do you, Donna?
Yeah.
Consecutively, you can't exclude anybody.
Right.
Okay. All right. So I guess you can't exclude anybody, but anyway, that's my piece. I really do appreciate council. How long has it been, right? 2009 since we were talking about this, and Burns Mandel. I think it's brilliant, actually, what has happened in terms of being able to access the lagoon Best Buy has. Because if we would have built our own lagoon, it would be a lot more expensive.
No, I don't object to further development. What I object to is we're not provided with the information we should have.
And why do we have to use the lagoon? There's many other things out there that are the place. Lagoons is old technology.
So let's not be on hold until we know how many lots are gonna be, because if you're gonna develop that east side.
We can only hook up 8.
Let's
and then how much can the lagoon take?
let's hang on here for a minute. Our engineer is going to weigh in on some of the questions that have been asked. If I could get him to do that.
Sure, this is
Yeah.
Sure.
Good questions and good discussion. Appreciate that. Maybe I'll go in reverse order, Mr. Kynes. Yeah, one of the requirements of a local improvement are that, once it's developed, all lots have to have connection within a 10-year time frame. So that, that doesn't work as an option. And then you're correct, the lands to the east of Main Street were never included as part of the long-term wastewater loadings. So that's
For this
why.
round, for this round.
Yeah, it's limited to an 80 acre. So, and say, hey, I want to get another 40 acres, I'll reduce everybody's amount. And that's not an option just because there is the capacity at that lagoon to be able to handle that. So we are limited to what it's been sized for and what capacity is there. So that currently.
I understand that, and I understand you're doing it in phased way, so you're saying, okay, how can we get everybody in shade around this now? Some of your lots, Peter, and there's a little bit of extra capacity, but for the main part of the east side, that'll have to be down the road. I do understand that.
So the way the license actually works in these systems is, it's based on cubic meters. Really what it is we have so many people, we have so many houses, we assume there's so many people per house, so much wastewater generated per person, because that's sort of how the industry does it. But if you put in a metering kit, which is included within this design, and you find out that the community is using, on a running average, they're using or generating less wastewater than what the lagoon is designed for, well, then we go back to the province and say here, based on the 5-year average, this is what actually is being used and disposed of. We have more capacity there. So that might be an option in the future, but that's not there now until we have data to that.
I understand that. So I've been in discussions with the municipality for over a year now about, in fact, the RMP, we said Peter would probably have, was it 7 or 8 capacity for 7 or 8 lots. So that's why we started talking about the potential to make some of the lots 150 feet rather than one, right?
And we accounted for that in our.
And that's already accounted for. So then I guess this local improvement plan, should they vote on it tonight and it be approved, it would be, the final plan would be, depending on the number of lots that we finally are able to subdivide, if it's, and that will be open to a public hearing and you guys could approve, could agree with it or object to it, but whatever the final number, then that might actually bring the costs down 10% or maybe even 20%, depending on the number of lots that we could, add to the.
Firm at 80 homes.
Pardon me?
I'm pretty sure the contract for the lagoon is firm on 80 homes.
Well, it could be.
No, it is. I got it right here. Would you like to read it?
But what Dan said was that, what Dan said was that unless more capacity can be found and agreements can be updated, right? So it would be in the best interest, probably, if I were a resident, to say, well, I don't know, it'd be good to get the cost down by 10% or 20%, wouldn't it? I mean, isn't that every?
Well, that's what we were told during the water upgrade, and 10 new homes went in and our water didn't go down. So, the proof is in the pudding. You keep saying that, but our rates never went down. Our public improvement tax never went down. I saw
Sean.
10 houses go up.
Sean,
Yes.
can we let Dan finish,
Yeah,
please?
sure.
Thank you.
Well, I'll be happy to answer otherwise, put many questions I can, but I think, so that's just my explanation of the lots and how the sizing came about. And then, in the contract with Meadowbrook, basically takes those numbers and turns them into a number of units or houses or number of lots, is kind of how the calculations work. But there is, yes, you would potentially have to go back to Meadowbrook, but if there's data to show that this volume is what you bought, because essentially you've paid for a volume in the lagoon, you're using less than that, there may be some opportunity there to increase to it. So that, that's how our calculations all work on, is volume, not necessarily loss.
How much growth is there for Meadowbrook if they come in? Are
They-
they gonna bring in more?
They have what they built, because they built 90% of that lagoon was funded by them privately. They have room there for 2 phases of what they're building. So there is room for more, I think.
And you've taken that number into the equation there, like to the maximum what they're gonna add to what we have, so that we're not gonna overburden this.
Yes, yeah.
They've got adequate for the build out too, what they want to do.
In order for them in the future to get And potentially a long term there, they've got plans for up to 4 phases, each phase being 50 units. That lagoon is designed right now
accommodate
for the end of phase 2, and then in order to get phase 3 and 4, they have to do another small cell on, one more cell on construction, but
Who pays for that?
that's them. 'Cause
That's on them.
That's all that.
private, yeah.
Dan, can you, I'm hearing even people in Chater, can you explain the portion that the RM paid for with gas tax? We paid for, we
Yeah.
didn't pay on dime for Meadowbrook, so explain how that worked. Yeah.
So- How that whole thing went was the Meadowbrook, because we were their engineer. We designed the lagoon and obtained the license for it.
300,000 to Meadowbrook for the lagoon. So
But-
how did we not pay for that?
Dan, can you explain it to us?
So we designed a lagoon, put it out to tender. They had 5 or 6 contractors bid on it. It was awarded, and construction began. And that lagoon for Meadowbrook only was the primary cell for all of their current development plus those 4 phases that I talked about. The secondary cell was sized to account for 2 phases of the 4, because they felt like that was probably a 15-20 years before they would get that full, and at that time they would add on some additional capacity. So that was tendered and was being built. And then the opportunity arose for the municipality to potentially partner. So what we did is we calculated, okay, you need another, I'll just pull a number, this isn't the number, but you need 100,000 gallons to be able to service Chatham. So we went back to the contractor and said, increase the lagoon by 100,000 gallons in size. So make your whole 100,000 gallons bigger. How much more would that cost? That's what the municipality paid for. So they basically bought that capacity for the residents of Chater to be able to dispose of wastewater into that lagoon that was already under construction. So they weren't funding any of the Meadowbrooks work or
So
costs.
does the RM own a percentage of that then for the Chater residents?
No.
So if you're saying like it's 25% of that lagoon is, does the RM own that, or is that still privately owned?
Privately owned, they own the right to dispose of wastewater in that lagoon.
So there's nothing for sure then for private, if it's privately owned.
Privately, correct. And maybe we can answer, Dan, a couple of your comments, with transparency. I apologize for that. Council doesn't have the information on those tanks. I've never provided that to them, so that may be my error. We probably have about 85% of that information. Some of the tanks we weren't able to access, so we don't know what the condition is. And when I came back to council and discussed these tanks with them, I said, how are we gonna handle those? We originally talked about connecting and everything and that being part of this local improvement. But I said, I don't know if that's fair to all the ratepayers, because somebody has a tank that is concrete that's 40 years old, that's completely deteriorating, that it needs to be replaced. And somebody's got a tank that's under their deck and you gotta take their whole deck off in order to do the work. Well, that cost is gonna be more. So should that be borne by all of the residents, or should it be, somewhat that's that residents' issue? They're responsible. It may cost them more to do their potential hookup, but that's because of their situation, where the tank might be placed or the condition of it. Somebody else has a brand new one that's right there, that's easily accessible. Well, then there's a lot less cost to it, or somebody has to, and so why I don't know those exact numbers, for instance, is, I have no idea where you live, but you may have a pump in the basement, but it needs a whole bunch of electrical work to get a service out to the tank, and then plumbing to get out to the tank. It's kind of an individual thing. You actually got to meet with a contractor and say, okay, I need to put in an electrical service. I got to pull a circuit here. Oh, my basement's finished. Now where am I going to drill through my wall? So it's pretty difficult for us to give you an exact number of what that is on every individual basis, because everybody is different. So that was why when I sat back, when we presented to council, I said, likely the best thing to do is we're going to bring the service up to the tank, and then individually, everybody would be responsible for connecting to it. And you might decide, well, hey, I put my tank there 35 years ago, but that was a bad spot for it. Now I want to build a deck or have a flower bed there. I want to move it over to this spot. Well, then that the onus is on you to make that decision and to do it and figure out how to get electrical to it. And then that way those costs, you're making the call on the cost. I was also worried about landscaping. There's lots of very nice yards that people have spent a lot of money on landscaping. And if the contractor's just gonna go in there and dig it up and make a mess of your landscape, and everybody's phone's gonna be ringing forever. Well, I'd rather you hire the contractor to mess your landscaping up, because then you can phone him and make it put it back to how it was. So that's the reason why that tank sort of issue is what it is, and that there's such a variability in it is, you know, we don't know all the information. The tanks that we looked at, we can give you guys a list of what we do know. There's no secrets to it. We know that some of them are concrete. We know some are single cell. We know some are 2-cell. Some are good. Some have a submersible in them. That's going to be easy. I have no problem providing that information, but to give you really detailed, this is what your cost is going to be. Well, then do you need electrical? Do you need you need a plumber for sure? Do you need an electrician? Now your panel's not big enough and I got to put a new electrical panel in. I completely get what you're saying. How do you make that decision without knowing that? But that's a huge personal thing for each person to make those decisions as to what do you want to do? How do you want to do it?
Like, that's a pretty general, I think, the septic field.
Yeah.
Will we have to decommission our septic fields?
There isn't any regulation that requires decommissioning of the septic.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure.
Yeah, because what John sent about that point source hazard and the issue with the groundwater, it seems kind of, because if you read the manual, it does mention about decommissioning. In the
On-site wastewater regulation manual?
province.
Provincial one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
That kind of stuff, you know, I would like, we could have used this kind of information. Did you tell the people that have to move their tanks that they gotta move that they have an issue with the tank? That it's made, you know, like the tank is under the deck, or your tank is gonna need an extra cell, or did you at least give them a general information they're gonna have to do something?
Like
to
if
their
you're gonna
tank?
bring the line to our tank, at least tell us we have to get a new tank or something. So when we do get a contractor in, we're gonna say, well, we're gonna need a new tank, and we're gonna need a pump and the list of the stuff that you gave us. But if you don't have to replace a tank, then. Right?
Yeah, and everybody's situation is different, right? So that's what I envision. Everybody's gonna contact plumber. We have a standard detail and say, here's what I need, and they're gonna look at it and give you a quote for it.
But I don't know, do I have to replace my tank? I don't know that, right?
And we don't necessarily know it. Like, from us, from doing an inspection, I can see the hatch.
Yeah.
I can look down in it, hold some of those old good concrete tanks, maybe crumble, they may be good, like. The plumber has to do a detailed inspection to figure out whether
So it's up to him to decide whether we need a
it's
tank.
gonna be something. Well, and you might want to move it, like it depends on lots of things.
Well, I don't
So
think
it's-
after
it's a
2 years of
difficult one.
COVID, people have got like a pile of money kicking around, like if it was screwed up by his government.
But I have no problem giving the information on what we have, like some of the tank lids were even completely buried, so I couldn't even access them to even know what is there, whether it was a concrete or fiberglass or single cell or 2-cell, you know, and I can't start going out and digging things up in somebody's backyard. So I like that part of it is difficult, but what I can provide to council and they can provide to you, the information we have is that I want to be transparent. There's no secret to what we.
Well, that would be a good thing. But where exactly are you going to tie on? Because if somebody has a pump out system, wouldn't you be able to tie on to the line that goes to the field? You don't have to come right up to the septic tank, would you?
Yeah, that's possible, and that's kind of one of those things that during construction that the intent was that we would be working with each individual owner and the contractor to figure out where that is. My preference is to go back to the tank. There's gonna be a whole bunch of pipe that's in the ground. A lot of those old systems were put in with old worm clamps that weren't stainless steel. They're gonna be rusting, they're probably leaking. You know, ideally, I don't want to tie into that stuff, but in a situation, it might be that I cannot get to the tank I know the pipe is over here, let's expose the pipe over here and tie into it, you know, so there's some field fitting one-offs that you just don't know until you get doing the work. Preference is to bring it back to the tank so that everything's new, because I don't want to go in and you have you guys do all the work and then in 3 years, you find out you got a wet spot in the middle of your lawn and, oh, hey, I got a leak in this old pipe and you know, why didn't I replace that? And that engineer should have told me to replace it. I would like to get rid of it all. New to the tank, new bulkhead fitting into your tank, new pump. And then, you know, I'm confident that the system will be there for many years without any issues.
That's providing your tank is the right one for that system.
And there's only
Because there's going to be some that might be a single cell.
in the new part.
There's not very many, most of them are,
Okay,
because most, especially the old part have fields. So most of them are set up with
a double
two
cell.
cells already.
Right.
Yeah.
So is it a submersible pump?
Yes.
It has to be submersible?
And that's why I say you might need to bring electrical service, because I know that some of you will have pumps in your house. That's a pretty uncommon thing in most jurisdictions, but Manitoba does allow it. Most other provinces, putting a pump in your house, you know, they don't allow that anymore. It has to be submersible. Our preference is submersible because I've always talked about wanting to have, because the pumps have to have the same characteristics. Because if you buy a different pump that has all kinds of power, you're gonna overpower everybody else's, just so you can get rid of your waste, but we don't want that. We want to make sure that everybody's pumps are working together within the system. So the idea is to have the same performance on all the pumps, so therefore the same pumps. If there's an individual situation that it's impossible to do a submersible and you have to go in the house, we can look at that or work with the homeowner on kind of a individual basis. Again, it's sort of the same as that connection.
So bringing an electrician, bringing in a plumber, taking a look at the tank that you have is all above the $11,000 to hook up to this system.
That's part of your connection cost, correct? That would be borne by the individual property owner.
So that could cost anywhere from, I don't know, $5,000 to $10,000, depending on what kind of generator, what kind of stuff that you need.
And it could be as simple as pulling out the pump and putting another one back in, and that's all, that's it, right? So it depends a lot on everybody's connection.
Who's supplying the pumps? Is the RM gonna get like a bulk purchase on them for discount? Or?
That's one of the things that was discussed. I don't know, it's not part of the costing anywhere right now, the cost estimate supply of. You know, I kind of envisioned that neighbors probably would say, let's collectively go out for a tender, you know. There's 12 of us on our street, let's go out to four plumbers and say, hey, if we give you all 12 houses, how much? And they can maybe price it that way. Or
Does it make sense, Dan, to have certain things that everybody for sure is gonna need, such as a pump, included in the local improvement? So maybe we increase the amount that everybody pays a little bit, and at least they know they get a pump. And at least they know they maybe get, you know, maybe there's even like $500, like the average, I bet you the average septic tank is gonna be just fine to use. Probably, right? So, you know, assuming that it is, then I wonder what the budget would be, Dan, would you think, because the pump is probably $300-400, right? People are concerned about not being able to, you know, it's gonna be a stretch. I'm wondering if maybe it makes sense that, you know, have a little bit higher local. I don't know, guys. I don't want to introduce complication. I'm just only wondering if that might be a credit. There's a credit there, right? So you got a $2,000 credit or whatever, and that's in the local improvement plan. If you don't use it all, then maybe they even get a rebate. I mean, would that be?
Yeah.
That's a very unique situation.
Yeah, I visualize folks, when we originally talked, that the RM will, the engineer will design the pumps and will go out and do a mass purchase. Like put it out for tender, and then the homeowner would basically somehow basically reimburse the municipality for that, because the municipality has no buying power, and we're talking about bulkhead fitting and all that. We've discussed a lot of that. What's the best way? And council agreed, and I supported it. I didn't at first, but then when Dan came back, and Dan suggested of all the situations out there, some tanks you can't even see, like you just mentioned. We said, let's bring the pipe up to the tank.
Good idea.
Everybody
I like that.
is on the same page.
Very smart, and you know that with the directional drilling now, they're amazing, because they can go right to the tank, it's incredible.
Is that defined as the directional drilling sewer service line then?
The design is for as much of the infrastructure to be put in trenchless, so knowing kind of the geology out in that area, kind of the Reed Street is rocky, we're gonna have trouble there. And as you move further south, we get more into a silty clay, so I envision the majority of the older part of Chater and the undeveloped or the lots that are ready to go could be directional drill. There will be some open cut up into Reed Street.
Is there opportunity, say if you do have to have your service line trenched in to get it run in a different directions? In my case, I don't want to have a tree cut down. As in your plan, you show it running directly where there's a mature tree. Yeah.
Sometimes, probably we can work around it, but it depends on the situation. Exactly. We don't want to go out and blow out a bunch of mature trees by any means, and don't want to wreck people's landscaping, we're trying to, will there be disruption? Yeah, there's gonna be, contractors are gonna be around, they're gonna be digging holes, because when you directional drill, you still have to dig a pit where you start, so there's gonna be pits dug at the street, and then I envision they'll drill into the tank and then daylight back up tanks as much as possible, is what we're looking at.
Sorry again, so when you come and dig up my front yard, you're gonna come back and then fix it, like the way it was prior to it being dug up? Like, we had that RFN now come and put a pipe in front of our house, they left a mess. We had a water pipe burst 10 years ago, they came in and fixed it and left a mess, left it for us to have to fix it after paying them $10,000. So who's gonna look after the mess that they're gonna make in front of my house?
Well, as part of the contract is, the wording of the contract is that needs to be restored to pre-construction condition. So who's gonna look after it is, depending on who services board, somebody asked about the project manager, services board hires a project manager when they are providing funding to a job. So their project manager will look after that and to ensure that it's restored back to its original condition.
Who's taking care of the maintenance on the lines? If you have to pick a line or the lift station goes down, and the water stops packing up into our tanks, like who's taking care of this? Is there gonna be a 24-hour emergency service for garden to look after this, so our basements don't flood?
It's a wastewater system that the municipality owns, so, and, as in anywhere, if you lived in Brandon and you had tree roots plug your sewer, the service on private property, well then, the onus is on you. So if your pump dies on you, then,
Yeah.
you need
So
to know that
you're gonna, for
that
the
it
line you
died.
take to the tank, you're gonna be responsible from that point.
The individual owners will own from property line, anything on their property they own. So anything in the municipal right of way back to the community lift station would be maintained and operated by municipality.
Who's paying for this? We paying for that on the taxes, or
No,
that's
that,
gonna cover that
that,
cost?
that would all be included within your quarterly utility bill. So once we have the idea of what the maintenance would be, the first little while is just going to be purely uneducated guess until we have a few years of understanding what kind of maintenance would be required. But that would be included in your quarterly utility bill.
So if we get like a steady quarterly bill and one of the lift pumps go down, where a line breaks, is that gonna come on our next quarterly? We're gonna try and recapture that
No,
cost?
no, because it's all pre-approved by the Public Utility Board, so we can't just arbitrarily add additional things to your utility bill. So if the lift station pump goes down, say, then that would have to be paid for by the utility. So thus we have a utility reserve.
No, correct, me if I'm wrong, it's the same thing as the water right now.
Exactly the same as the
Exactly the same.
water.
So is my insurance gonna go up once this thing is all hooked up? What's insurance?
Your backflow valve, nice question to have answered.
Sure, but I don't see why your insurance would go up. It's no different than right now, your system drains to a tank and you own a pump that pumps it out to the field. And this situation, it drains and it pumps it out to a community lift station, so there's no.
But our field isn't hooked to 79 other homes. That can backflow. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
why in the city do you have to add riders to your insurance to protect you for sewage backup and put in valves, but not for this?
Because this would
There's a
have
lot
to
of pressure here. with
back through your tank, but these systems are designed with multiple check valves to prevent backflow prevention. That's part of the design, even the curb stop that will be on your property, so there's a valve that's at property line, the same as your water valve. It has a built-in incorporated backflow prevention.
Yeah, so that pipe is full. Now my pump comes on, pushes that valve open. There's way more pressure on the outside than my pump pushes. What stops that from coming back through that open valve?
How do you know there's more pressure on the outside than there is
Well,
on the
I'm
inside?
not sure because who knows?
on the outside, it might push your valve open.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's designed that because the line itself is daylighting into another tank, so there's no built up pressure. It doesn't have pressure coming from all the way down the hill back
No.
at you.
But there is the pressure of what's in that main pipe to the lift station, correct? So if someone has a breach in their tank and it's getting flooded with groundwater, will that not create pressure?
It'll just have your pump will run the same as if anybody's,
Yeah,
it would just cycle your pump on. But I don't see that would create an insurance issue, but it's something that maybe you should probably check into here.
would it be nice if you guys looking into it for us to check it.
That's another cost.
So they already have the design where it's gonna come into our yards, like, can we see that? This one guy was talking about.
Yeah, that's all I mean.
Oh, okay,
It's
okay.
going way back behind your place. You're going all the way out to the corner of Maine. You got a long, like.
I'm getting a good deal then.
But, and we could discuss, like, that was the thing we did at the last meeting, is we.
Yeah, I wasn't here.
We left them there, and then if you have a tree that you say to us, hey, we'd like to save this, we can look at those, we're happy to mark up a drawing and have a review of that on our end for sure. And some of that will be, like I said before, decisions that have to be made in the field when the time comes, and we can plan 95% of what's gonna happen, but there's always unforeseen, and there's gonna be some changes that occur, we need to, adapt to that, make those decisions.
So if you directional drill, you could actually come right up into my basement if I have a pump in my basement.
Yeah, you can, because you do that with water quite often. Yeah.
So actually, that would mean a minimal of this disruption, because all I'd have to do is switch or buy a new pump, whatever, and switch the sewage coming in or the water coming in, hook it on to the one going out to the street, and I'm done.
The challenge with that is that we're having issues with pumps, that type of pump versus a submersible. They operate a lot different. So we have looked at that, and we haven't been able to find one that's compatible with this particular system, maybe be some more work or a custom pump.
So just to be clear, just to be clear, this is a wastewater system, not a sewage system, correct? We are still gonna have to have our tanks pumped out, our whatever, once, 2 to 3 times a year, correct? So we still have to have them pumped out.
No.
Or whatever. Can I ask you that? Whatever the case, there's only 2 of us, we get it pumped out every 2 years. But I'm saying it still has to be pumped out. It's not sewage, it's water waste. It's what I wanted to clarify. That's all I wanted to clarify. It's not a sewage system, it's a water waste system.
Is there anybody else for or against? Or any other questions for our engineer?
No.
Go ahead.
First of all, I agree with Mr. Tardif. I would like to know
roughly, some guidelines as to what my input costs are gonna be. Now, if you're saying you have the majority of the hardware priced out? like-
Not priced out. We came out and looked at as many tanks as we could get access to.
But you have access. You could get me a list. Say, okay, a new tank is this, a new this is this, is this. Right?
Well, I can do an estimate of what I think it'll cost, but I'm not a contractor. so
No,
I
I
can
say, if I get a list of what I may have to put in, I can go to a contractor and say, okay, this is what I may have to have done. You come out, do your inspection, tell me what is, if this is what I need, right?
Yeah, we can give
But
you,
we can't go to a contractor if we don't know what we might need. Okay. So if you can supply it to the municipality, some kind of a base list, like I know every place is gonna be different. I've been around construction too long not to know that. If, a list, a base,
A base parts list.
yeah, that's the one I knew I was looking for a word. But there's one other comment I would like to make that hasn't been brought up yet. This system goes in, whatever our costs are now, value of your property is gonna go way up. Like compared to what we got now, as soon as you put that sewer and water in there, there's gonna be a fairly good increase in your resale price.
Yeah, it's
Can
an
I
investment.
comment with that
It's
too?
an investment.
It's an investment.
It's the same as renovating the house, like I paid $5,000 to get hardwood floor put in my house. It's an investment in the property that I hope to reclaim
I mean,
as selling point.
I
technically,
guess that's.
Could we let the young
question.
lady in the
Yeah.
back there, she's struggling to say something?
Well, I'm just waiting my turn. With that, if the value of our property does go out, there's gonna be reassessments on our homes as well. So our taxes will also go up after the reassessment.
The potential is there, yes.
Actually, that's a good question there. That was one of the reasons, if you look at the amount of dollars that the RM used for gas tax, we took that into consideration. We realized we're not, what is it, tax assessors, but council did agree, there's a good chance all the property or the assessment will go up, the property taxes will go up. That's why you see that large amount of dollars that the RN put in there, because we can't take it out of taxation. The only place that we could take it from was gas tax. So if Jadra had it on the presentation at the last time, I think we generated around $102,000 so far, but 390 went into this project. For that very reason, council was optimistic. There's going to be opportunities there to collect it on the taxation side, but you're basically getting a gas tax money up front, basically. But that's a good point you brought up there.
I think, speaking on valuations in RN such as ours, there's a lot of farmland included in our tax base. I believe, and you guys accomplished it correctly if I'm wrong, but I believe that the provincial law is that you can only raise your tax base in the whole RM roughly about the rate of inflation, so roughly 3-4% a year. And the beauty of it is, for us as homeowners in here, not farmers, the farmland is going up like crazy, faster than houses are going up. And as long as that happens, we don't have to worry about our houses. So no matter what they're valued at, the farmland is going to outweigh that. Would that be correct, or is that tax, or is homes, or are homes taxed differently than farmland
Yeah.
on budgets?
No, they're not taxed differently. It's the level of taxation that you are assessed at though.
Okay.
So a farm property, well, in the past number of years, some of our farm properties have averaged an increase of up to 50%.
Right.
But they only pay tax on 26% of the value of their land. Okay, where residential, we pay on 45% of the value of our property. Yeah. So that level of taxation is a little bit different in there, and it isn't just capped at the inflation. And they do it every 2 years now, and they take all sorts of things into consideration. Changes in the type of services that are provided within the community is one of those things. What sales are happening in the areas, that is a huge indicator of an increase in an assessment in an area.
I guess that's what happens. Governments are all broke.
Carol, did I answer your question there? About,
Yes and no.
yeah, you can't take it out of taxation, at least you were told you can't, right?
Well, to take it out of taxation, now you have to include, you need to include everyone in the municipality because others in the municipality are paying for those taxation amounts, right? So, and it's a local improvement just for those that are actually getting the new service.
John, go ahead, and then the fellow in the back after.
Just through experience of building homes and renovating homes for the past 40 years. I know of not too many people who don't spend $1,000 a year to upgrade their homes. So, you know, when you look at the cost of $1,000 a year over 20 years, it's very minimal. Go price a fence right now. Compare that to a sewage system. Like, people have to realize you can spend that much money on a fence and still have no sewage. So, I mean, $1,000 a year, yes, it's a lot of money for a lot of people. But there are a lot of people who spend $1,000 a year to maintain their homes at all times. One furnace, whatever, you know what I mean? It's yeah, so as far as I'm concerned, it's the best bang for the buck that we've ever come up with. Because it's like, if we didn't have the opportunity to add on to this lagoon, we would never have sewage in Chater at all. It would never happen. Everybody who's got a field, a number of years, they'll all be done. Then what are people going to do? Everybody who's got a septic field that's still functioning, might have another 10 years. Mine was the last one that went in my first home. Nobody after that. So 2004. That was the last tank that went in, septic field that went in Chater. So that's already almost 20 years old. So in 10 more years, I would have to replace this. So I look at it from the point of view, anybody who has a field, if they're not looking 20 years down the road and for a potential buyer who's going to buy that home, like, I've only got 10 years left on this field. I'm gonna have to dump another $40,000 if I want to put a field in, which you can't. So then what do you do?
It's a holding tank.
It's a holding tank, exactly.
You like your own thing?
This system is collection only. And you would pay, so this amount of money you would pay no matter what you were doing to dispose of the wastewater. So this is one piece, and if you didn't partner with Meadowbrook for that 375, you know, roughly I think the number was another $1.5 million or $2 million for a lagoon, so that would be on top of it. So
That's
you're
what you
looking
do.
at right
You
now,
should, it's $40,000 per house. You do
you're
it
probably
that way.
looking at 2.5 times the local improvement
Exactly.
in that situation.
As opposed to $30,000 to have our own lagoon built, this is a no-brainer. And
Go ahead.
most of the fields,
Oh, sorry, Joe.
most of the fields are going to be out of date in 10 more years. But the last one was fine. In 10 more years, it's out of date. So in 10 years, we'll all be back at the same table going, now what am I gonna do?
Can we use a grinder pump in a single cell tank?
Can you?
I didn't know.
Did we design it that way? No. The thing was, everybody has to have the same. So we stayed away from that just because of the cost of the grinder pumps quite a bit more. And most of these tanks are already set up as a 2-cell tank, so I didn't want to. If I went that way, it would change quite a bit more of the infrastructure that people owns. So we just decided that
It would change the lagoon too, wouldn't it? The aspect at the lagoon.
The lift station for sure.
Be a little bit of, yeah, potentially on the hydraulic, the organic loading. I'd have to think about that, look back exactly how I designed it, but yeah. We didn't do, just.
Well, most of us that do were single cell tanks.
That we
We
would,
use different grinders if we've got the power there.
yeah.
But the ones with the single tank, if you get your information, there's another small tank that you can buy and coupler it to it for your pump to go into. And it's what, 400, 500 for the tank?
It's 400 gallons.
So you'd have to do a bit of research. And that was the other reason why council thought that the landowner or the property owner, it would be up to them to look after that because of what we were dealing with. You know, you've got decks, you've got single cells. So this way it makes it fair for everybody. Everybody looks after their own and then you move forward that way. And I'm gonna be bold and say that everybody wants to do their due diligence on their half to see which is the right way for themselves to do it. Because that's going to be a big part of the extra cost to this whole equation. And some will be fine, some will be a little bit more. Guaranteed.
Ryan just reminded me, a grinder won't work for the system that was designed, because we don't have enough velocity in the main, the force main, so it could potentially cause plugging issues. So if you're grinding and putting some of that solids in there, then we have to pump at a lot higher rate, which would have been a lot
More
bigger
flow.
pump. So yeah, no, the system was designed strictly for the liquid portion.
Don, I've got some information. Now, once we get past this next stage, I didn't want to spend too much time. I will work with council and the engineer to give the people with the single stage tank some options. Very small tanks on the side, or an equinox would be your best option.
So I have a question. What's the average person here pay a year to pump out their tanks? If you don't have a field.
$1,500.
It depends on the amount of people. To begin with, you got to know that first.
$2,600.
Yeah.
So that means you're gonna be saving a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like the case for itself.
2,800.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think 1,500 for two people.
Wow.
You got a brand new hose, we've never had a bath in our house yet. Yeah, these are tubs. Just, we'd be pumping out every week and a half, kids were having baths, just showers.
And how big a tank is that?
I wanna say it was like 1,800 gallons.
Really?
So, but unless you have a field, if you have a field, then you're gonna say, well, wait a minute. I'm not doing that much pump ups. It's all going in my field. I'm only pumping up once in a couple of years or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
140.
Right.
But in that 45 years, 25 years ago, or 20 years ago, we changed it. Now, do we have another 5 years on it?
Maybe.
So.
Oh, they fail,
That's it.
and you can't rebuild it, right? So for many of the people in this room, it's incredible because they're gonna be saving money by doing this. This is amazing, right? For the odd person that has a field, maybe they're not gonna like it, but if the field is nearing the end of its useful life.
What about other options like individual bioreactors? though?
Yeah, they're wonderful, but you know, I've tried to get them approved before, actually for other developments.
Yeah.
And conservation doesn't approve. So what they do is they say, you can have a state-of-the-art biological wastewater tank. Polymers sells for like $20,000 or $18,000, but they don't let you do direct discharge outside anyway, so you still have to pump it out. Unless you
So
do
you
something.
pump
like-
into a field then?
Pardon me, you don't, they don't go to a field, but they don't allow direct discharge to the environment, even if the water's clean. It's kind of like ridiculous. So it's like it's not a technology problem, it's a political problem.
As in their manual, they lay out exactly what you need to do to use them.
Okay, so is that for 2 acre, is that for 2 acres?
It doesn't really say that much about the size. All it says is you have to have it tested.
Let's get back on track here because I know everybody's tired and
But we're voting on this tonight, so we kind of need to.
Well-
Are we voting tonight or?
No.
no.
Yeah, so you're going to tell me when you speak, if you are in favor or in opposition. There is no vote. I just need to know if you are in favor or in opposition. Then this information, if council gives first reading to this bylaw, goes to the municipal board. The municipal board is the final deciding factor on a borrowing bylaw.
And Don, I have a question. We talked about on the phone. If I want to add some lots to it, we're in the process of doing that. Well, how would your bylaw read or your,
Right.
right, you would say any lots that could be added to it then will reduce the.
Yeah.
will-
And we don't even say that within this particular document. It's
Okay.
when we get, so the first bylaw, if it's approved by the municipal board, is the one that allows council to proceed and to get the construction done. When the construction is completed and we have the final dollar amount, then a new amending bylaw is done. And that amending bylaw, at that time, if your subdivision has been approved and there are 8 new lots, say,
Right.
now instead of 69, we'll have 77 lots.
That's-
So that final amount will be divided by all 77
Okay.
lots.
Yeah. So it doesn't hold things up, is what you're saying.
Doesn't hold things up.
So the numbers that you give us here, they're gonna change. Once you get that amendment after construction.
That's right,
So it's probably-
because this is just a cost aid, right?
Budget-
That's what it's
budget.
called, a cost aid estimate. So it's a best guess estimate. Then if things proceed, then they'll be allowed to start doing the tender process, and then the tenders will come in.
Because you can't tender now.
You can't tender it without
Until-
approval.
We gotta take it to the next step. The tender will give you a good idea then, correct?
Well, it'll be the final
Yeah.
price pending
Yeah.
unforeseens and
Big
any
rocks.
change orders during construction. That will be the bid price from contractors.
And the vote date? At that point would
There's
be.
no vote. There's no vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dan, just a
Just-
question, I mean, you designed the system, you designed any of these systems. Your cost that you have come up with is within the norm range, correct?
Yeah, it's with the current market conditions, anybody doing cost estimates are always a little on the edge of your seat, but it's the numbers that we used were conservative numbers as of last year's kind of construction costs. But the materials and what the pricing's been doing, it's hard to say. We tried to get an updated quote from one of the contractors on just the price for pipe before,
Yes.
but they have been pretty non-responsive on that themselves, so. We feel it's a good cost estimate, there's a contingency built into it.
Oh, you do have, okay, good. And then you build up otherwise.
May I speak?
Yeah. Go ahead, Terry.
Okay, I just wanted to say that in my situation right now, I have to pump out 2 times a month, which on average is say $150. But there are the odd months, depending on how many weeks are in the month, that I have to pump out 3 times, which brings it up to $450. And I just wanted to say, to steal a phrase from Mr. Pelche there, it's a no-brainer. I am definitely for it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor or in opposition?
Yes, I'll speak in favor, Donna.
That's Arlene?
Yes, I would like to know a little bit more about the cost, though. If I'm clear, they only bring it up to the tank, and then after that, you have to have a plumber and electrician to actually get it going, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm in favor, and I would believe it's the opposite. At least we can write things off. Whereas our pump outs,
I'm sorry, your name?
Amanda. Clue. Property tax law.
Everybody to show.
Yeah, Dawn?
I'm in favor.
In favor.
If you're in favor, could you stand up and say your name so that Donna doesn't have to look up every time?
Sorry,
Thank you.
Dawn, yeah, got you.
What if you're still on the fence?
Well, at this particular point, yeah, if there is, And right now, there is enough in favor for council to proceed if they wish to give first reading this evening. If they give first reading this evening and the municipal board approves it, then we will be proceeding with the local.
But even listening to the meeting tonight, there were so many questions about costs that people have. Without those being answered, how are people able to really say whether they're on board or not on board?
One thing that in this particular situation, that we're governed by the Planning Act and we're governed by the Municipal Act. You actually now have 10 years to join. So if your field is working just fine, and if you're okay with having your pump outs done the way they are, yes, you still have to pay for that line to come past your property and to your tank, but you don't have to spend that money right now to get that done. You actually have 10 years under the act to join into the system.
Will we still be paying on our water usage though?
If you're not connected to the
Yeah.
system, we can't put you on to paying for,
Just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure, because it's not like you monitor what's coming out of my tank, going by my water usage.
that's correct,
So,
that's how it's.
I
that's
just
how it's
wanted to
done.
make sure that you still weren't gonna charge me by my water usage, even though I wasn't hooked up to it.
Yeah, if you're not connected to the system, there would be nothing, like, we wouldn't be able to include you within
I just
that.
wanted to make sure you had that on the record.
I'm gonna say that that's a no, but Public Utility Board again governs that too,
Oh,
so,
so
but
that
I'm gonna
might
say
not.
no.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
it, to me, it's just the same as anybody that has the water line, like Peter's Properties right now, if they have one that has a water line in front of them, they don't have a meter, they're not getting water, I can't give them a quarterly bill. Right,
But
so
you're
if you
gonna-
don't have a sewer connection, you're not putting any sewer into the line, so there's nothing for us to charge you for.
But you're billing by water usage and I still have water use.
But you won't be putting anything into it, the
Okay,
system.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Okay.
Well, I'm in opposition.
Yeah, I got you, Sean.
Yeah, we figured that out.
Mr. Tarda?
I'm not in favor as well.
Okay. Is there anyone else online who would like to weigh in?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, who's speaking, please?
It's Bob Lamport.
Huh?
I'm definitely in favor.
Andrew Ratt, in favor.
Sorry, Andrew, what was your last name?
Ratt, R-A-T-T.
Dina? Unmuted. Anyone else online wish to weigh in?
Hi, this is,
Randy?
Yes.
And Randy, were you in favor or in opposition?
In favor.
Okay.
this is Trenton Terrian. We're in favor.
This is Mike Tuttle. We are also in favor.
This is Jason Fisher. We're also in favor.
And it's Brenda Clark. We are in favor as well.
Thank you. Oh, somebody has a hand up. Go ahead, whoever has their hand up.
Hi, it's Brenda Clark.
Yep.
We're in favor.
Thank you, Brenda. Anyone else in the audience?
So you say we've got 10 years to hook it up, we can pay that price to run it to our tanks, and then we don't have to hook it up right away though.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Again, that may also increase your costs right down the road.
Yeah.
And also, I should say, if there's anyone who's thinking of selling their property, if you're gonna sell your property, my suggestion would be go on the local improvement, because the local improvement stays with your property. Unless you wish to do the one-time payment and you feel that you can get that value back out of the property that you're selling. You know, you can do either or. But if your short-term goal is that you're gonna be selling your property and moving, you know, that could be more of an advantage to you.
So the person who buys that house pays that 900 extra a month. after
A
they
year,
sell. A year.
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, so it doesn't stay with you, it stays with the
It
actual
stays
property.
with the taxes of the house.
Yes, yeah.
Donna,
Yes,
it's Lena, and I wish to speak in favor.
thank you, Lena.
Is
Okay,
there anybody else online that we've missed? See them?
the only person I'm not sure of is the,
I'm on the fence here.
okay,
It's probably gonna happen. I'd just like to see more numbers.
I guess then if council is prepared, we could have a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Seconder for that? Kurt? Anybody wish to speak to that? I will call for the question, all in favor.
Okay, so under the order of general business then, if council is so prepared, the first item would be first reading of bylaw 1706-03-2022 for the local improvement.
That's 6.1.
Yes, 6.1, so
I'll make a motion to get it on the floor. Be it resolved, we hereby give first reading to bylaw number 1706-03-2022, being a bylaw to authorize the expenditure and borrowing of money for the completion of the Chater sewage collection system as a local improvement.
We have a seconder for that? Does anybody wish to speak to that?
Yeah, I can't emphasize how important this is for this municipality.
Excuse me, could I ask you people to talk quietly or take it outside, please? Thank you.
Yeah, we've been working on a sewage collection system in Chater for, I'm gonna say 12, 13 years. We've looked at every opportunity. The city of Brandon, we looked at the lagoon to the east. This is the best, the cheapest alternative. We've got a 30-year agreement with them. So I think it's a positive, not only for Chater, but for the entire municipality.
Anybody else wish to speak to that? You can. Sorry, Joe. I don't know if we'll let you, but I need to call for the question. All in favor?
then the next item on the agenda is to allow for the signing of the water services agreement.
We need a mover and a seconder.
I lost my screen.
I make the motion that we could go up straight to.
Yes, I can, yes. Whereas the Manitoba Water Services Board has prepared a construction cost sharing agreement dated April 14th, 2022, respecting the Chater low pressure sewer collection system project. Whereas the agreement is a 50-50 funding agreement in the amount of $2.5 million. Now therefore be it resolved that the municipal signing offers are hereby authorized to electronically sign the cost sharing agreement with Water Services Board dated April 14th, 2022, respecting the Chater low pressure sewer system project.
I'll second that.
Anybody wish to speak to that?
Let's follow up the.
Other than John.
Follow up for the first reading, what's the next step?
I will call for the question. All in favor?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Hang on. I want to give John an opportunity to ask this question.
No, actually, it wasn't a question. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you.
Okay, mover and a seconder.
Got them?
Oh, you got them?
Yeah.
I will call for the question to adjourn. All in favor?
Thank you, everyone online. We're going to close the meeting now.
Thank you, everybody.